Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Leeds Fan Channel. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. And it is Connor here, a little bit of a different setting. I thought I'd make it nice and dark and moody for a real humbling performance from Leeds, really. I was really down in the dumps last night. I didn't really want to do a stream. But hello, welcome to everybody who is just joining. I'm just making sure my ugly mug is on here and okay. Yep, absolutely fine. Welcome back to everybody. Hi, Connor. Just one of those nights, wasn't it? Says Fran. I think that's a good point. Leicester look brilliant, don't they? Yeah, Jay, they looked very, very good last night. Hey, mate, it's Daniel from Seattle, Washington. Look out for the videos. Always a treat to watch. Listening while getting a workout in before work. I'm not going to be able to pump you up, mate. That's going to be the problem. I apologise for that. But yeah, thank you for everybody who's joining. If you are joining me later on in the day, you can always go back and watch this again. It's available to watch on YouTube at any point. So let's get into it. I've written a few notes down and I want to get your comments in as well. Obviously, this is an interactive platform, but this is going to be my sort of take on the game. Yeah, and we were forced into a little bit of a change, weren't we, earlier on in the game with regards to Leeds' lineup. Obviously, we had so many creative outputs of ours out from the start, really, in terms of Rafinha, who a lot of people were calling to start. Rodrigo, who's been absolutely pivotal in everything we do going forward, really, in the last 2 or 3 games out amidst COVID scares. Hope you get well soon, Rodrigo. So, yeah, we don't know what's going on with Rafinha. It seems to be an ankle injury. But I tweeted out before the game, it'd just be nice for Leeds United to actually go into a game without an injury. And the same can be said for Leicester City. Obviously, they were absolutely battered by injuries. But it'd be really nice to go into a game without just a maraud of injuries. And it seems to be the case of Leeds at the minute, or the curse of Leeds at the minute, that we just cannot start a game in the Premier League without injuries. But yeah, so we went into the game. Leicester with a massively changed lineup as well, which is really key to know. It wasn't all about the Leeds injuries. There was masses of injuries from the Leicester end as well, which is why we can't really turn around and say, well, it was because Rodrigo wasn't playing, because Calvin Phillips wasn't playing, that we weren't able to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of people are talking about Leicester being a top quality team. We dust it off and we move again. I think that's a really good point, and we'll get onto that in just a second. A lot of people talking about the rain, which, we're not going to talk about the rain being a problem for us, but it was a problem for both sides. And I think this is a really good point here from Jake Brown. Leicester City's counter was scary, and it was really, wasn't it? We went into the game and you sort of turn around and thinking it's a very similar blueprint to Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I did think that. I did think it was going to be the same sort of thing. And can Leeds find our way past that? Can we find our way past that differential, which is teams sitting in and hitting Leeds United on the counter-attack, which has been a problem that has hindered us in the Championship. It was a problem that hurt us against Wolves, but I thought we were better against Wolves. And last night it really did batter Leeds in terms of how we were able to approach the game, dictate the game, and essentially break Leicester down, which we barely did. But the lineups, obviously, the key thing that I sort of thought at the start of the game was the amount of players that Leeds had on the bench that were going to be able to affect the game, which were, with all respect, let me just go through this bench. Poveda, Alioski, Roberts, Casilla, Stroik, Davis, Casey. Now, I would sort of ask the question to any Leicester City fans if they know who any of those players are, and it's not a slight on any of the players there, because we are a team that is a team. It's not about the individuals. It's not about the egos. But what it is I think the Leicester City fans would have known who Rafinha was, would have known who Rodrigo is. And the reason I touch on that point is because all football fans know about game changers. And I think Ian Poveda has given himself a chance in that aspect of how good he is in terms of being able to change a game, being able to dictate a game. But aside from that, it's a largely Championship outfit, isn't it? And I think you saw that yesterday with the team lineup. The team lineup was arguably a Championship side. We didn't really have any massively creative players. We saw Pablo come in, obviously, who's not started this season, and he's going for that step up. I didn't think Pablo was amazing last night, but let's get into it anyway. We look at Leicester City's team last night. And for me, Leicester's team was much different in terms of, Albrighton came in. Me and Rob Mulholland did the build-up for last night, and we were talking about, Albrighton coming in, us maybe being able to expose him. He's getting on a little bit, hasn't really played in the Leicester first team for a long time now. Luke Thomas, who was, I believe, their left-sided player, a youth player similarly to what Leeds were bringing in terms of, KC and Stroik and players like of that ilk on the bench. Fofana, who went into a centre-back role. Justin, who completely changed his position to go to the right side of a back three. Tielemans, who dropped in deep, which he normally is in that advanced role. And yeah, we seem to just really struggle with it. And from the moment onwards, we saw Leicester sort of build into a 3-4-3 formation, which, we're talking on the opposition preview as well. Are you going to let Leeds have the ball? Well, Leicester wanted Leeds to have the ball. They showed us respect, which I don't think Aston Villa did. I think Wolverhampton Wanderers did. And I think Brendan Rodgers took that blueprint. He took that mantra of how to play against Leeds United with his own modifications. He let Leeds have the ball. He packed out the midfield, so he made it compact, using the same word twice, but that's what he did. Make it narrower is probably the better word of putting it, making Leeds' patterns of play cut off, the supply lanes smaller, if you will. And we really struggled. We massively struggled. And obviously we did struggle, like I was saying previously in the Championship, to break down teams who just sat back. And Leicester are not that sort of team, but you did get that sort of counter-attacking vibe from Leicester. And that's what the Leicester are. They'll let you have the ball. You look at the possession stats there in the entire game. Leeds had 68% possession, which we sort of expected. But Leicester didn't come on us. They sort of let us have the ball, and then they pounced on our mistakes. And for me last night, that was the key bit last night. It was the mistakes. There was so many of them. Hello, Philip. Good to see a lot of you joining now. Not having a go, says Ollie. But Bamford sticks that away in the second minute. It's a different game. Definitely, I completely agree with that. We're just setting our natural position of upper mid-table. If Pablo's shot goes in, it's a different story. And yeah, they're all very viable points. I think if our chances goes in, I think I said it on the watch along as well. I said that is the difference. That is the difference between the Premier League and the Championship. We got a rude awakening last night to what that was, and Pablo hitting the bar, Bamford missing two really good chances. That first one in the second minute, it had to go in. It had to go in. He's 4 yards out. It's not come at him abruptly. It really hasn't. It's a little bit of a soft header. It's an excellent cushioned header. He's got to score. He has to score. Jamie Vardy gets in those positions, he scores, and that is the difference. It really is. Danny Ings gets in that position, he scores. That is the difference. That's not hammering Pat's performances, because he's been superb so far. Proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. But, they have to go in. And it is the thing with Pat, isn't it? It's 1 week he'll have an amazing game against Villa, the next week against Leicester. He had more chances last night than he did against Wolves. I thought Wolves completely restricted him. But Bamford, he really struggled to put away his chances last night. And I think it was probably his poorest performance of the season last night, because he did have the chances, which against the Wolves lineup he didn't really. And, they cut his supply off completely. Rogers cleared his research and did us tactically. I'd completely agree with that. Some Leicester fans in the chat, which is great to see. Good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, Leicester fans, we don't want to be bitter. We're not a bitter fan base on the One Leeds channel. We're not. We give you respect when you've won the game. Unlucky result from Leeds, but Bamford has to be putting them chances away. And I would say that. And we saw Leicester even play on the Thursday night here, as Matt Davis says, and they did look fresher. And it does bring the question as well. Would Leeds? We played on Monday against Wolves, then we played on Friday against Aston Villa, and we look fresher than Aston Villa. I think with this Leeds side, because we're so enigmatic, we're so energetic, we're on the press consistently. We're so the stamina is unbelievable. We never get fatigued. It probably favours us to play in that Championship mould of Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you see what I mean, playing in that same ballpark of maybe once every 4 days, once every 5 days, instead of having such a long layoff like we did. And Leicester, they look fitter than us. They look fresher than us last night. I thought the high press was absent. Me and Rob were saying that it's going to be, I think the difference was that we expected to overrun them in midfield. And I thought Shackleton in there clicking the defensive role, which Bielsa did. I thought that had worked really, really nicely, actually, because I thought Click's passing ability and Shackleton with those energetic runs would put players like Maddison off the game. But then you realise, you look at the quality of Leicester, and you look, they've been experiencing this from Man City and Liverpool for years and years and years now. And, maybe it was a little bit of naivety thinking we're just going to completely put them off the game and they're not going to be able to deal with it. They dealt with whatever press we had. They put us under the press and we couldn't deal with the press. We kept losing the ball. There was a lot of unforced errors, even when the press wasn't on. Players slipping everywhere. Players crossfield balls on the floor. I mean, I didn't understand that last night. Why the crossfield balls along the floor when it's on a really wet surface? There's so much of an opportunity for the opposition to counteract the balls along the floor on a zippy surface or for it to go out of play. And we saw that so much in those first 20 minutes. Those first 20 minutes, I was terrified. I genuinely was. It looked like it was going to be an absolute hiding. I don't know what you guys thought. I thought we were going to get an absolute hiding last night. And after that 20 minutes, wasn't able to play a pass. Cooper, bless him, he's come back from injury. I've seen today that he's back in the Scotland squad again. We just don't need that. We don't need that. And to flip a positive on it, I think Liam, with a lot of training spells and the ability to work with the squad, he's going to get better and better. I don't think he's as proved it in the Premier League yet. He's been hampered by injuries. The games he's played, I haven't been fully convinced yet. I thought Jamie Vardy, we'll get onto Jamie Vardy in a little bit, but I thought Cooper really struggled against him last night. I sort of said at the start that I would have liked to have kept that same consistency of the back four. In terms of Ayling, I think he's got a yard more pace than Liam Cooper. And if I'm being honest, I think he reads the game better than Cooper does. I like Dallas on the right-hand side against Villa. And I thought Alioski, there was a lot of times where Dallas had to cut in on his right foot last night. And like we were saying in the build-up, what do Leicester do? They press on the wing. So any cut inside, you've got a wet surface, bang, they hit you with the press. They recover the ball high up the field. They're playing Jamie Vardy. And we saw that over and over and over again last night. I just think with Alioski, as a left-footed player, the ball comes across his body, he can ping it in just in behind. Whereas Dallas, he has to take that extra touch to put it on his favoured foot, then ping it down the line. The press counteracts that, and you could see that in the first half for me. Just getting some of your comments in now, guys. Do you know what, Fanning? I'd probably disagree with you there, mate. I thought Click was actually really good, and a lot of people might agree with me. I thought that there were a lot of positives last night in terms of Click and Costa. I thought Costa was really good last night, probably one of his best performances of the season for me, going at the full back, being able to recover the ball in terms of free kicks. He'd nick the ball off Luke Thomas, then maybe go down and get a free kick, and I thought he did that really, really well. Click, for me, it's a role which he's not been asked to play in. It's not his natural role to screen that back four, and I thought he did okay. His ball recoveries were okay. We'll get onto the goals in a little bit with my gripe with Click last night, but I did think that maybe the back line maybe shouldn't have been changed, and that's just my personal opinion. I said it in the preview, but I also said in the preview that I thought Click and Shackleton would work well together. But I think the thing with Click and Shackleton is you can have that. You can have the defensive stability, and then Click just in front, screening the back four. Shackleton is that energetic little player who's maybe going to put the likes of Tielemans off or players like that. But you have to have a creative outlet. And Rodrigo been out, absolutely killed that last night. We had no creative outlet. We did in Pablo, but he's not started a Premier League game yet. And I think we're gaining momentum with Rodrigo. And and Robin Brooksbank coming up saying, think you watch a different game, mate. It's what football's all about, Robin. It's what football's all about. It'd be boring, wouldn't it, if we all saw football the same way? It really would be. I'm trying to give a balance here. It's just how it is. You come on here, you give your opinion. There's always going to be people who disagree with you. That's just how it is. We really miss Phillips and Rodrigo, but my biggest concern is Bielsa not going to change his tactics. Next game will be a test, as Palace will do the same. Listen, I'm trying to get as many positives from that game as possible. We're absolutely battered with injuries. Costa, I thought, was really good. Click was really good. That Bamford goal goes in. I don't know if it had been a different game, because I still think Leicester would have been extremely dangerous on the counter-attack, and I think that's a little bit of a disservice to Leicester as well. We know how good Leicester are. I believe City got a goal back against Leicester. They might have even scored first against Leicester. I can't remember when they beat them 5-2. Leicester still went on to score more. And just the mistakes that kept reoccurring last night, I don't even know if a full Leeds United side would have. I mean, we wouldn't have lost 4-1, but I don't know whether or not we'd have been able to counteract that. There just seemed to be a flat-footedness about Leeds last night. We didn't seem fresh, as a lot of people have said, and we really suffered. I thought last night. I thought Leicester looked a little bit more up for it. It's just my personal opinion. But yeah, and as Robert Shaw says here, it just seemed there was a lot of slow, bad passes that were going out of play. Anyway, let's go on to some. The positives were as well. We won possession, which we always like winning possession. The shots as well. We had a lot of shots, which is good. We always criticise Leeds United for not getting enough shots away. Shots on target is the differential. Leeds had 4 shots on target. I think we had about 11 shots overall. And that's including the goal, which are you going to class Dallas's ball in as a cross? You probably are. There needed to be more on target for me. Leicester had 9 shots on target, and I think they had 10 shots altogether or something ridiculous last night. The shot accuracy on goal was phenomenal. Always trying to work Meslier. And I mean, you look at the goal. We've not broken down the goal yet. And we'll get onto that in a second. But I'm just going to read out some of your guys' comments last night. We were tailor-made for Wolves and Leicester. Palace don't have the quality, but if we are missing the same players, I fear. I think this is also a really good point in terms of Martin Swan, where he said Leicester will be top 4 this season, and we was in the game till the Vardy goal. Must be a positive. They were better, but we were in the game till then. And I think this is the key, guys. This is Leicester City. When we were back up, in yesteryears with Leicester City, there, Leicester was sort of a mid-table side. They're not that side anymore. They're an extremely well-established, very good Premier League winning, Champions League experiencing, Europa League partaking team. A lot of people last night are talking about Leicester potentially going on and challenging for the league. We're looking at the discrepancies of Liverpool this year, the discrepancies of Manchester City in terms of personnel, people out of form. If Leicester can establish some home form, their away form is incredible. Could they challenge the top 2 or even be in the top 2? They're in the top 2 now. I know we're early on, but we've got to look at who we're facing this season. Leeds is imperative this season. And I think me and Rob were talking about, it's all about managing expectation, is hitting 17th. Leeds are void our goal this season. I'm not too bothered with loss last night. I'm not. The manner of the defeat annoyed me because we didn't play to our strengths. Leeds have to play to the strengths in every single game because we can show so many teams of what we're about. But it's one bad performance in 7 for me. I don't think Wolves was a bad performance. I think Wolves were better overall than us, but I don't think it was a bad performance. I really don't. We've had 3 centre-back partnerships now in the space of 7 games. You have got to look at the positives. Our target is 17th. We're not going for top 4. We're not going to challenge the league. We're not even going for top 10. We're not. The objective for Leeds United is to finish 17th. That's it. To avoid relegation, to consolidate and remain in the Premier League. And we all said at the start of the season, and you can come on here and say you didn't, but you all will have done, Leeds are going to take potentially a couple of hidings this year by the way that we're playing, the quality that we're going to be coming up against. And unfortunately, that was just the issue last night. We came up against an extremely good side, an extremely well-endowed side in terms of depth, and we came unstuck. We had injuries out, and that's what you've got to take as positives. We didn't have a fully strength side out, but neither did Leicester. And I think I just think that's the target this year, and I think a lot of people, we need to look at anything above 17th is amazing, and the Bielsa mentality of finishing 5th, 6th, 7th is amazing, but the bog standard reality of this year is finishing 17th for me. I mean, what's the objective? 7th, 6th, 7th, that can happen. We can have and this is why it's such a positive outlook to have, because our minimal objective is 17th. Then could we get 10th? Then we can look at that then, but getting to that place, beating the teams around us is the objective right now. And I think that's the key thing to focus on, to be quite honest. Teams like Leicester, unfortunately, they've had years and years and years and years to consolidate. And that'll just be backed up by, let me just read out Leicester's bench. We mentioned Leeds' bench earlier on. Let me just read out Leicester's bench. Wes Morgan, a Premier League winner, captained the Premier League team. Danny Ward, promoted with Huddersfield and part of the Liverpool setup for years. Iheanacho, Jose Perez, James Maddison, Under, who they've signed in the summer, and Chowdhury, who's come through their development and been part of this Leicester City side for a couple of years now and played in the Europa League on Thursday. So this is a massive bench. We saw when James Maddison came on that the control in the midfield turned from Leeds back on to Leicester City. And that's the sort of player they can bring on. That's the sort of player they can bring on. You look at the third goal, James Maddison sets up under straight to Vardy, 3-1. Counter-attack. And that's what we're coming up against. We're coming up against absolute quality. And I think a lot of us have to manage expectations in terms that we're doing so well. It's been an unbelievable start to the season. What is it? Is it 10 points in 7 games? We'd have all asked for that at the start of the season. And I think it's been a brilliant start to the season for me. This is sort of something I want to touch on as well. We'll touch on Ian's comment here. Ian from Perth, thanks for joining, Ian. 2 main things affected the match. First half, short, lazy passes. Weather made it hard to play our touch passing. Needed to make our passing with more care. I'd agree. I think our passings was poor. And I think this is a really good point as well from Radaby Leeds. The corners is a big issue. And the reason I'm going to touch on the corners, just from a tactical standpoint, is just because of the amount we had. Now, Sky notched it up at one point to Leeds having 11 corners in the 89th minute. We were a bigger team than Leicester last night. They had Wes Morgan on the bench, who obviously when he came on made the height difference, not a thing. But they weren't a tall team last night. I think the tallest player looked like Kasper Schmeichel. We had the likes of Robin on the pitch, Luke Ayling, who's 6'1", Cooper, who's 6'1", can cause a problem, Bamford, who's 6'2". The corners were absolutely horrific. They were absolutely horrific. That we had, I believe we had a short corner which actually led to the goal. But in terms of just getting the ball in the box, and I know we like to create angles in terms of short corners and playing it on the edge of the box, then delivering it in. And I understand that, of course, but surely when you're taking 10 corners, you've got to at least put maybe 70% of those corners in the box when you've got a height advantage over the other team. I mean, Leeds never have a height advantage. It's weird talking about that, isn't it? You look at Wolves earlier on, we didn't have a height advantage. Fulham, we've never had a height advantage. Sheffield United, we've never had a height advantage. But last night, we had a serious height advantage over Leicester, and every single ball that went in, even the crosses, when we were talking about it at the start of the game, every sort of cross aside from Dallas's cross that went in was just nodded out. So they had back three, 1, 2, 3, and their right-sided centre-back was always nodding the ball out from Harrison. The left-sided centre-back was always nodding it out from Helder Costa. So the balls in weren't great at all. And it was a massive frustration last night, because I said before the game, me and Rob were talking about it, it could have been somewhere where we win the game. A bit of a variance on what Leeds normally do in terms of, passing through the teams, overloading the channels, overloading the flanks. But could we actually do something a little bit different? We've been more direct this year. Could we be a little bit more direct from the corner kicks and set pieces? And unfortunately, the delivery was just woeful on points last night. We just could not beat the first man. And I just think I think that would have been a really nice sort of, as I've just said, a differential to see. But like I said, it's one of those where we're coming up against an absolutely quality team, and we've really got to just take umbrage to fair play, Leicester. You were better than last night. For me, a lot of people saying that it was Leeds' errors that led to it, but there was some unforced errors, of course, but Leicester were forcing us into these errors. Leicester were forcing us to go back to goal from that goal initially. Robin was being forced to go back to goal by the Harvey Barnes and the Vardy press. I mean, we'll talk about, Robin didn't have his best game last night, did he? That back pass, it was just, he had Barnes, I believe it was Barnes or Vardy, had both of them in his eye lines. That's why I was completely confused as to why he went back to the keeper. It's all in hindsight, and that's what a match review's about. But if in doubt, get it out. But yeah, it was a shame, but I'm not too bothered about it. I'm not too bothered about losing to Leicester. I don't think they're in our remit so far. A lot of people do seem to think it. But I think Poveda was really good when he came on. I thought Poveda was really nice. He sort of got found out a bit. They started doubling up on him. But in terms of the second goal, we look at Jamie Vardy's involvement, and I think that's the key thing. Vardy, he was unsettling Cooper and Koch for me throughout the entire game. The first goal, he had a massive involvement in. The second, obviously, I don't know why Tielemans is on his own. Vardy beats Koch to the header. He shouldn't be beating you to the header really there for me. Palms it out straight to Tielemans. There's no one within 10 yards of him, no one following Tielemans in, which is really rare for Leeds because we normally deploy the man marking system. I think that was Klick's man, and Klick just seemed to let Tielemans. And this is what I mean. We just seemed to be off it last night. We seemed to be really off it. And yeah, I don't know. I'm really positive. I genuinely am. This is an overriding positive video for me because it's going to happen. We're in the Premier League. We're in the best league in the world. And I just think this is going to happen. That's all. The third goal, obviously Maddison gets it on the turn, plays it through to Under really nice. I mean, they were the substitutes they brought on, Maddison and Under, and they made a massive difference, didn't they? They took control back in the midfield. We have a 15-minute spell, I thought, at the start of the second half. We scored the goal. Pablo hit the bar. And there was a bit of luck that went against us last night. And obviously the fourth goal was the silly penalty. But I did think the Klick defensive midfield role killed him. We didn't have creativity beyond Shackleton. I didn't really think Pablo was in the game at all. Obviously hit the crossbar, but the other, 60 minutes of the game, I don't think you can sort of say that Pablo had a great game. But it's one game. It is one game. And I think there'll be many games. There'll be many games where Leeds come back and are brilliant. Connor, what are your thoughts on Pablo? If I has been negative, you could see he's past it to an extent. Whenever he's played this season, he's had no impact. I think there was a lot placed on him last night, mate, just in terms of how good Rodrigo's been. But Rodrigo against Wolves, he wasn't great, and I think Leicester were playing the exact same way as Wolves were really, and they were more effective than Wolves in terms of the counter attack. So we knew that with Leicester, but knowing it and stopping it are two different things. And I think Pablo probably wasn't the only individual to blame last night. I thought there was a lot of off performances, and it wasn't the Leeds United way. It wasn't the Bielsa way last night. And you could tell that at half time when they all came out and they looked like they'd had a rocket in uncertain places. They really had. So he wasn't happy in that first half. He was very animated. And you could tell in the second half that they'd really had a talking to. But that's the quality. The last two goals was the quality that they have, unfortunately. And even with players out, we can't match it, guys. We can't match in terms of personnel. A Premier League team who've won the league, who've been in consecutive Champions League campaigns, Europa League. In terms of personnel, we can't match that level of quality, unfortunately. And Leicester just looked better than us last night, in my personal opinion. Now, what I would have liked to have seen, and this is where I'd like to get your guys' opinions, would be in terms of having someone like, obviously we know that Rodrigo's probably going to be out the next game. We don't know how long Rafinha is going to be out, but what about Joe Gelhardt? And I've seen a lot of you guys talking about it at the Palace game. He looked brilliant in the under 23s game. He's looked brilliant so far. He's had consecutive appearances. I'd have probably liked to have seen him on the bench last night. He's played in the under 23s, so he's played the Bielsa way. I think he's going to be a real key person in this season for me when Leeds are down to the bare bones. I think someone like him on the bench last night, it'd have excited a lot of Leeds fans. I think Greenwood's still out, but someone like Joe Gelhardt would have been a really nice addition for me into that substitution bench. And I think that would have given a lot of Leeds fans a lot of sort of buzz before the game. I think we're all a bit worried about the bench, and understandably so, before the game started. But we saw a lot of Leicester variations in the game. They were changing the phases of play. Sometimes they'd have three pressing, sometimes they'd have one, and the in-game management from Brendan Rodgers was very good. A lot of transitions, very quick on the counter-attack, and you have got to give praise to Leicester. They looked very, very good last night. For me, the best team we've played so far. And you've just got to say fair play. We're going to lose games this year, guys. We're in the Premier League. We've got to understand that transition, that we're not going to be winning every single game. I still think we're the best of the promoted teams. I still think we're one of the best in the bottom half of the table. So there's a lot of positives, genuinely. As Wu Xing Li says, we will learn from this and move on, and we will. I personally thought we were sort of done last night in key areas, and that's why this video is titled the way it is. I thought we were humbled in certain areas, and that's not a slight on the squad. That's not a slight on Bielsa. We're just ravaged with injuries. We're a new side, and we're against a top quality Leicester side. So yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is, and we move on, don't we, guys? I've been rattling on for 30 minutes. I didn't know it had gone on for this long, but listen, I hope you're all keeping well. We will be back. Do not worry. Leeds United are always back, and we're always good after a big defeat, aren't we? We always are. We always come back. We're always ravenous. We always get we always get told. And as Rick Kerr says, Leicester have had some brilliant results. Just Peace says, you learn more from a loss. And that's so true. You do learn a hell of a lot more from a loss. And Leicester, it's no. I know a lot of people are saying, we were rubbish. You can't give Leicester all the respect, but I think you have got to do. They were very good last night, and alongside that as well, you learn from a loss, as Just Peace says, and I think Leeds will do well. We're always very good off a loss, is what I'm trying to say. And we go down to London. It's not a great hunting ground for Leeds, but records are there to be broken. Keep your chin up. Honestly, we will be back. We're Leeds United. We're always back. We're in this Premier League campaign now. Enjoy what we're doing now. Enjoy the football. Enjoy Bielsa. We won't be here forever. The game last night wasn't great. We all know that. But you know for a fact it will not be the same against Crystal Palace. Coming back with a win for me, I think we'll do it against Crystal Palace. I think we'll win the game. Keep your chins up. Keep smiling. And guys, I'll see you a little bit later on. Cheers.